Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, and welcome to this session, which is all about the opportunities for the north of England in the low carbon economy. I'm Annette Bramley. I'm the director of the Innate Research Partnership, and it's an absolute treat to be your facilitator for this discussion. We've got a fantastic lineup of leading innovators with you this afternoon, and I'm absolutely delighted it's an all-female panel that we have here. We're going to be discovering what's already going on in the north of England to transform and decarbonise our economy. We'll talk about the scale of the opportunities for businesses and what we need to do to make this happen. And believe me, it will happen. Climate change is already happening. And as we see more and more the impacts of climate change on the things that we value, our way of life, the natural world and our children's futures, the pressure from consumers and policymakers will only increase demand for low carbon products and services. The green or low carbon or net zero economy, whatever you want to call it, is going to be one of the fastest, if not the fastest, growing sector of the global economy over the next 30 years. Not only that, all jobs are going to need to be green jobs. We're going to see increasingly carbon literate consumers and policymakers pushing for new models of business, finance and education to deliver net zero. So whether you're in housing or healthcare, fashion or farming, you'll need to be there ready to meet that demand, or you are going to get left behind. And I don't know about you, but I really don't want the North to be left behind on this green industrial revolution, not when there's so much to play for. So I'm thrilled to be joined today by an amazing panel. Victoria Merton, who is Director of Corporate Affairs at Peel Group, is going to tell us about the clean tech cluster being developed in Ellesmere Port. And by award-winning tech entrepreneur Sophie Walker, COO and co-founder of Dsposal, helping businesses manage their waste and turn it into something useful. And hopefully, if the internet works out, by Paula Widdowson, Executive Member for Environment and Climate at York City Council. Paula will be sharing her scars and successes from tackling the decarbonisation challenges in the wilds of the City of York. First of all, I'm going to talk about something which underpins everything we need for decarbonising our economy: skilled people. I'm the director of the Innate Research Partnership, the strategic alliance of 8 of the UK's top universities based here in the north of England. These 8 universities are giant businesses in their own right. Together, their combined turnover is greater than that of football's Premier League. Just imagine the market for low carbon goods, products and services companies tapping into the decarbonisation of these businesses and into the buying choices of their employees and students. Not only that, these universities supply knowledge, innovation and skills directly to businesses in the north of England and beyond. And this is where I want to focus today, on the importance of skills for decarbonisation and the green economy. The Innate universities, with our partners in further education, business and other universities and agencies across the north, have come together to develop a pan-northern programme, Net Zero North, which aims to drive economic growth and levelling up through the green economy. Net Zero North would provide innovation and skills for the region's businesses and industrial clusters to make sure that the north of England does not get left behind during decarbonisation and instead becomes the heart of green innovation in the UK. Figures from the Local Government Association estimate that in 2030, there will be nearly 700,000 full-time equivalent jobs in the low carbon economy in the UK, rising to nearly 1.2 million by 2050. Of course, we want to see the north of England capture a high proportion of these new jobs, and this means that our businesses will need to be early adopters and capture market share, like Peel and Dsposal today. And by the way, personally, I think the LGA numbers that they present are an underestimate of the total opportunity, because they only take into account a subsection of all the types of businesses that will be helping us to reach net zero. We'll need a carbon literate workforce in all sorts of sectors to do that, whether it's project managers and plumbers that will help us retrofit our homes and buildings for net zero, or digital skills for the digitisation and move to Industry 4.0 accelerated by COVID, or new urban farming and land management skills to make better use of our natural landscapes for storing carbon and mitigating the impacts of climate change, like reducing flooding, or politicians and policymakers that can factor planetary health into their policies and decision-making, fully understanding the competitive advantage that decarbonisation can bring to places. All of these skills and more will be needed. To make sure that Northern Powerhouse is an attractive place to base your low carbon business, and to make sure there are people that can install heat pumps or electric vehicle charging points or whatever carbon savvy supply chains and consumers are demanding, we need to have the skills base in place to meet that need. To make sure that the value created by our region's universities stays in the region and brings economic benefit and improved quality of life to people in the region, investing in skills and education at all levels and throughout our lifetimes is absolutely essential. And as we mark a year since the start of the first COVID lockdown, this is a much needed message of hope. There will be opportunities for work and high quality secure jobs in the low carbon economy. We want to make sure that these are in the north of England. It is vital that the government underpins the economic recovery by investing in skills for decarbonisation across all sectors, upskilling and reskilling those most affected by COVID and those that will be affected most by the transition to net zero. It's vital that our businesses move quickly in partnership with universities and colleges to set the conditions and the agenda for a decarbonised future in the Northern Powerhouse. Connect with us at Net Zero North if you would like to be part of our movement. And with that said, I will hand over to Victoria Merton of Peel Group to tell us about the exciting clean tech cluster in Ellesmere Port that will protect and grow high-value manufacturing jobs in the region. Victoria.
Thanks very much, Annette. That's very kind. And good afternoon to everyone. Welcome. And this is a really exciting platform and a great day for highlighting and showcasing everything that the North has got to offer. I think from our perspective at Peel L&P through Peel Natural Resources and Energy, the clean tech cluster at Protos is probably one of our flagship developments, which we have been incubating, working on and growing for the last 50 years. It started from a very small seed looking at resource recovery and has now grown to over 120 megawatts of diversified low carbon energy generation. At the moment, as we all know, the clean growth agenda is really topical. And we have the energy white paper, we have the 10-point plan, we have a green industrial strategy, we have a carbon budget, and we have net zero. These are fantastic roadmaps and markers for how we can start to decarbonise our economy. However, the most important part of this is actually going to be the delivery, so that, as Annette has cited, the skills that we can grow through academia can actually be put to use and to encourage entrepreneurship. So at Protos, this is where we are already delivering this type of partnership and collaboration. We work right next door and together with the Thornton Science Institute. So bringing forward new ideas through students' research and development that can then be incubated and brought forward to commercial scale at Protos. Protos covers 54 hectares and it's situated between Liverpool City region and Greater Manchester in the heart of Cheshire and Warrington. It's right at the centre of something called Net Zero Northwest, which is the super place, the industrial cluster, the delivery for net zero decarbonisation for the Northwest. We're really proud at Protos that through working in partnership with Greater Manchester, Liverpool City region, that we have managed to build up to date a diversified low carbon energy generation portfolio. This includes Frodsham Wind Farm, big biomass facility, the Covanta, Biffa and energy from waste facility, and also a biogas facility. So for us, the whole clean growth agenda and the support to the UK economy has to come through a diversified portfolio. And this means that in a heartland which is based on and has its heritage in energy intensive industries, there is a way of working together to make sure we decarbonise those energy intensive industries by supplying them with the lowest cost, cleanest possible energy to meet their needs, therefore allowing them to compete in a UK marketplace and across the world competitively. One particular area of interest for us is through the incubator technologies, bringing forward innovation. So one of the success stories for us working in partnership with Powerhouse Energy is converting waste plastics that would normally have been sent to landfill into hydrogen, which brings forward clean growth. So this is something that has been successful and is currently being deployed at Protos, and we're looking forward to rolling out commercial scale opportunities throughout the country. This clean tech cluster at Protos, at the heart of Net Zero Northwest, is encouraging inward investment. We've recently partnered with Covanta Energy. They've brought forward £400 million worth of investment into the region to make sure that the whole circular economy, the waste that couldn't be recycled, that has to go to landfill, actually has its energy recovered and reused through waste to energy technology. And finally, Protos, as a whole holistic vision within the region and the local community that it thrives and works in, also has 50 acres dedicated to a wildlife zone. We need to protect the natural world. I think we're all too aware these days of how important that is. So in order to keep supporting the UK economy, it's important that we work with the local community and provide a safe and secure place in order for nature to thrive and grow for the community to enjoy. So I suppose my final thought is that none of this is possible without collaboration, and it has to come from the local community, from local businesses, from academia and from private enterprise, from inward investment, from the local authority and into government. Without this whole partnership working together, we won't be able to deliver the truly decarbonised economy that we are heading towards to deliver net zero in 2050. I'm delighted to hand over now to Sophie Walker, who's the COO and co-founder of Dsposal, who will tell us about the exciting work she's been doing.
Hello. Okay, I think I'm here. Thank you so much, Victoria. So yeah, I'm Sophie. I'm the COO and co-founder of Dsposal, and we build software to demystify the world of waste and empower people and organisations to make better decisions with their rubbish through digitalisation and data. And our vision is for a world in which the materials flowing through our economies as waste are instead recognised and treated as the valuable resources that they are. So much of the stuff that we produce and consume has a longer life after it's discarded than while it's in use, and yet we almost have no visibility of its journey once we throw something in the bin. The current system leaves most of us detached from the fate of our waste, and you only need to look at the headlines to see that it often ends up where it shouldn't. So we believe that if we can give people and organisations the tools, data and knowledge to understand their waste better, then they'll be able to make better choices about where it ends up. And they'll start to realise that actually, if treated appropriately, it's no longer a waste or a burden, but actually it can be an asset and something that can deliver value. And if we start to treat our waste as resources, then we're much more likely to think about that part of a product's journey when we're designing those products. And that is a big step towards a more circular economy. And resource efficiency, although often overlooked, and I was delighted to hear Victoria just talking about it, but it can really help us to meet our carbon budgets and to achieve net zero. So it's really important. And of course, you know, the circular economy is about so much more than just recycling on steroids, but understanding what happens to things once they are discarded will allow us to transform the way that we produce and consume. And that will open the door to new business models and ways of doing things which embrace the sharing economy and redesign and reuse and repair. So as we look to the future and we come out of the challenges of the last year, we need to take a systemic approach and really seize the opportunities that we've heard about so far and more when we come to moving towards a greener economy. So we're currently working on a few projects which I think both sort of epitomise the challenge and the opportunity in taking this sort of more holistic systemic approach, and I'm going to touch on those now. So the first is we're working with Reply, which is another Greater Manchester SME, to look at making inhalers more sustainable, specifically the actuator, which is the plastic bit that the canister sits in. And this is a project funded by Innovate UK and Chiesi, who are a global pharmaceutical company with their UK headquarters in Manchester. And we're lucky to be supported by the Sustainable Materials Innovation Hub at the Henry Voice Institute as well, which is amazing. Obviously, we went into this project with our own assumptions about how we would make actuators more sustainable. But in speaking to stakeholders from across the entire life cycle of an inhaler, from the manufacturers to healthcare professionals and users to the waste management companies, we found that most of our assumptions have been really challenged. And actually, this project is not going to end up where we thought it would. It's too early for me to say where it is going to end up, but what I can tell you is that actually it's not as simple as just changing the material of the actuator from, you know, a type of plastic to some other material. And frankly, the opportunities that are emerging from this project are so much more exciting than something simple like that, and much more innovative. I was also lucky enough to receive a Women in Innovation Award from Innovate UK recently, and that's for a project that we're doing to improve waste management in NHS trusts. So we're working with Manchester University NHS Foundation Trust, and we're looking to work with other trusts as the project goes on as well, but we're building on our existing compliance dashboard to enable waste managers at complex waste producing sites like hospitals to understand their waste contracts and monitor performance, spot problematic waste streams or contractor compliance issues, and then get the detailed environmental reporting on waste that they really require but currently lack. And this lack of data is an endemic problem when it comes to waste, and one you hear me talk about a lot if you hear me speak, and one that we're really trying to solve in a way that delivers value for all the stakeholders. And we think that's critical because these are complex problems that no one company or one initiative can solve. Just like Victoria was just saying, collaboration is absolutely key. And one of the things I think is amazing about the North is that I think we're really good at that. Even like just from a data perspective, I can point to a number of open data initiatives up here pioneering new ways of doing things like Open Data Manchester or ODI Leeds. And what I'd like to just finish by saying is that often I think being sustainable or ethical are seen as things that require cost or sacrifice. So you do them if you can afford it. I think that's completely wrong. And I think in the same way that diversity is good for business, sustainability is good for business. If you want a business that is still thriving in 50 or 100 years' time, you need to ensure that there's a functional society and a habitable environment in the future. But it's not just good business in the long term, it delivers value now. I mean, we're an example of a thriving green tech business, but I can also give you loads of other examples of northern businesses who found economic prosperity from making sustainable choices. And there's a host of other women in innovation winners with environmental businesses proving this point too. So on that note, I'm really excited to hand over to Paula Widdowson, who's going to tell us about what's going on in York. So yeah, over to you, Paula. I hope, if the tech's worked. Maybe the tech hasn't worked. I don't know, I work in a tech company, I tell you, tech never works. There's always a problem. Right.
No, yeah, so clearly we've lost Paula again. And so we'll just continue to unpack some of this agenda, I think, while we see if we can get Paula back on the line, and if we can, then we'll hand straight over to Paula. So Sophie, I was really interested there in some of the things that you were saying about open data, in terms of Open Data Manchester and Open ODI Leeds. And I just wondered if you could expand and tell us a bit more about why you think that's so important for sustainability.
Yeah, I mean, I am a huge open data fan. I think it's really important for sustainability because I think it's really good for innovation, actually, open data, because it kind of it puts it out there so that people can actually find it and do things with it.
Well, I think
I
don't know what's going on.
We've got Paula.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm in this room or on the other one. Where am I supposed to be?
You're supposed to be here. You're fine. Are you ready to tell us all about what you've been doing in York City Council, Paula?
Apart from playing on the computer this morning, yes, I am.
Okay, well, we'll hand right over to you while your internet connection lasts, and then we'll pick up the discussion after.
Okay. So am I right to talk now? Should I be talking now? Okay, sorry about that. I'm not sure whether I was live or not. I've had one of the interesting gremlins in my system this morning with my internet, so apologies. Following on from the three fantastic ladies before me, I'm Paula Widdowson, Executive Member for Environment and Climate Change for York City Council. And you can see from the title that all of my energy and focus is towards sustainability and towards green investment. The City of York Council is working towards, made a pledge back in 2019 to be carbon zero by 2030. And to do that, we needed some facts, exactly as the ladies before me discussed. So we worked with the University of Leeds, because collaboration is utterly critical in this area. They produced the relevant information and facts in how we will get to carbon zero. And it was absolutely fascinating. So first thing we did was switch all of our, fairly basic, switch all of our electricity to green energy. So that means all the traffic lights, all the street lights, everything that you see that the council runs in York is on green energy. So that was number one. Number two, we were then found out that a third of our footprint is domestic housing, a third of our footprint is transport, and the final third is split between commercial buildings and industrial. So what were we going to do about it? And how were we going to work this through? Well, a couple of things. We formed the York Climate Commission, which started working on this area around Christmas time. And we've joined the Yorkshire and Humberside Climate Commission because, as everybody says, it's partnerships, it's learning from each other, it's sharing data, sharing information, sharing solutions. But then we have to do our own things because we are small enough as York to do what is required for our 210,000 people population. So in housing, we've done a number of things. We are spending £2 million, some of which is our money, most of which is central government money, on retrofitting council houses in a variety of ways and then measuring to see which one has the biggest impact. We've also spending £77 million, and this is central government money, on York Central, which is a brownfield site next to the city centre railway station, and the houses in there will be to passive house standards. So that is fantastic. In that development, we've also reduced the number of cars because you're in the city centre. So can you car share? Can you use electric cars? Can you walk? Can you use a bike? Can you get on public transport? Can you use the trains? So we're doing an awful lot in the housing area to make sure that we reduce our carbon footprinting, the net footprint even. The next area that we are focusing on is transport, which is a further third of our footprint. So we have really majored on the fact that we will not be able to buy new cars that are not electric by 2030. We've put in hyper hubs in 3 of our areas in the city, 1 in the city centre, 2 in the park and ride, so you can fill your car up in 20 to 30 minutes. 5% of all council car parking areas are EV chargers. You pay for your electricity, but you don't pay for your parking space. There are plans to increase that over the coming 2 years so that all of our park and rides and a significant number more of our parking spaces give you the ability to charge your cars up. We're also one of the pilots from the Department for Transport for e-scooters and e-bikes. So we now have 400 e-scooters, and at the end of this month, we'll have over 100 e-bikes around the city to enable people to get in and about in a carbon low manner. We've also invested £5 million in electric buses, and all of this supports our clean air zone, so that we committed to in January 2020, and we are the only city in the UK that has a voluntary clean air zone, which means it costs the residents of York money, but that's how how seriously they take it. Few other things that we're doing, if you look at the council, because we can control what the council does, but not the rest of the footprint. And the council is about 8% of our footprint. So what we are also doing in the council is we're investing over the next 5 years that every single vehicle less than 3.5 tonnes will be electric. The waste vehicles are being replaced and they will be electric. We are educating all of our council staff and partners in carbon literacy, so people understand it's not scary, you don't have to wear a hair shirt, you make sensible decisions, and as the last speaker said, it's good for business and good for the way that the planet works. And the final area that I am so pleased that we've managed to do is we've invested £3 million in creating a new woodland. It is the largest new woodland in England, and it is 154 acres, which will help us with carbon sequestration or storage, leisure and health. So all I can do is echo what the other ladies in the group have said. It's important to collaborate, it's important to get your facts right, it's important to start on the journey. Even if you only get 80% of it right, keep it going and we'll get to the end of it.
Brilliant, Paula. Thank you so much for that. That's a really inspiring story, and I can't agree more with your comments about, you know, starting now and start even with something small, because those small changes that you make over time, you know, build consistency and build like cumulative interest towards much bigger changes in the longer term. So I've got a couple of things that have jumped out to me, which maybe I wasn't expecting from, you know, as we came into this. And one of those is, you know, how do you guys who are interacting with members of the public, consumers or council taxpayers, and how do you convince them, or what's the value for them in net zero products, services, or the things that you're doing? How do you get them on side, and do you encounter resistance at all? Perhaps can I ask Victoria, because you mentioned that in the context of your nature zone.
Yes, I think the best way is to encourage them to come and understand the technology as much as possible. So obviously hosting site visits, letting them see around the incubator space at Thornton Science Institute, and in fact getting the students at Thornton Science Institute to explain their own technological innovation is one of the best ways to engage with the public. And then also, I think you've got to be part of the community as well. One of the things we do is we work with the community on a funding basis, so that local projects that might need infrastructure, or the scout group that might need some help, or the local football team, you have to be part of that community and show that you're committed, not just obviously to delivering, in our case, low carbon energy and working with industry, but actually you're there for the long term, and that there's a real collaborative vision, so that you can understand what they need as well.
Yeah, brilliant, Victoria. I think that's a really good point about relationships and trust, effectively. Paula, you want to come in?
Could I just add to that? I absolutely agree with you, and I really think what we can demonstrate, and what I see works really well, is what are the positives? What's in it for me that makes me either feel good or save money or makes it easier? So going back to the e-scooter trial, yeah, it's a bit curious and it's a bit quirky for York, you know, middle class, middle-aged white York, to be doing something a little bit quirky. But the amount of smiles it's producing, the ease with which people are transporting themselves from A to B, and it happens to be good for the environment. That's how we try and engage across York. That's the aim that we go for.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and I love that the smiles and the joy and the fun associated with it seem to be really important. We've got a question here in the chat from Richard Harrison, who's saying he agrees with us on growing consumer demand for green economy and carbon literate consumers, but this is a challenge for the public transport and convincing users of the benefits to switch to public transport from cars and using low and zero emission vehicles. And I wonder, Paula, if you have, based on your experiences in York, do you have any views on that, particularly the switch to public transport, I guess?
There's an issue at the moment because of the pandemic. So people are concerned. Now, that should ease over time, and we will get more and more people onto the buses, onto the trains. The other bit is to make it easier for your public transport to work rather than sitting in your car that's nice and warm with your radio on. So it's what are the benefits and how do you transport it between the two? Hence the e-scooters, hence the e-bikes that we're putting in, hence the increased pedestrianisation across the whole of our city centre. And we're also trialling hubs around the place to do the last mile deliveries into the city centre. But it's encouraging them. It's encouraging them to do it rather than saying, no, you can't come here with your car. It's to make it easier over there. Park at the park and ride for free. Get on a bus if you want to. Get on an e-bike, get on a scooter, or walk. It's only 20 minutes into town. So it's all that type of stuff that you try and do. But it's encouraging them because some people need their cars, and it's how you encourage them to go in the right way.
Brilliant, thanks for that. Sophie, I wonder if we could come back to you. I was wondering, one of the comments that I often hear, from people is that green, being green is more expensive. It's going to cost me. What's the, is that true? Is that an urban myth? Do you think that it's more expensive to decarbonise and it will hit the bottom line?
Yeah, I mean, I hear that a lot too. And I think I've got two examples of businesses that I like to wheel out when people say this to me. So one of them is Crystal Doors. They produce doors and things. And they've gone through a huge decarbonising kind of mission in terms of not just their site, but their whole supply chain. And they've gone absolutely above and beyond. They've won loads of awards. And basically the director is just on a complete mission, and he is absolutely, they've got electric fleets. They've employed people from from only the local area so that people can commute not by car. I mean, they've gone absolutely, really, they've done an amazing job, and they are booming. They are doing an incredible job, right? As in that, you speak to them, you will find that they have had no problem. It's been incredibly good for business. And then the other example is specifically to do with waste is Alderley Park, actually, where they used to spend money on waste like most businesses do, and they decided to approach this in a much more sort of systemic fashion, and they have gone about it waste stream by waste stream in terms of segregating at source, finding the most appropriate route for it, and they've actually turned it from being something that cost the business to actually generating income for the business and employing 4 people, I think, in the department. And turning those things into resources instead, where they actually end up going somewhere. They're not just getting landfilled or incinerated, but they're actually, they are going to places where they're getting recycled because they're treated like resources. So I think both of those are really practical, obvious examples where, making green choices have actually been really, really good for business. And I think, although they're quite extreme examples, all businesses, I think, can take a lesson from that and implement things that will make their businesses better and be good for the environment.
Great. And I'd like to pick up my own personal hobby horse of skills at this point, and just kind of go around the panel and say, just ask you, what kind of skills needs do you or gaps do you see now, but also in the future? Where do we need to be training people for today and also for for the next 5 years to meet the demands of decarbonisation in the north? Perhaps I can come to Victoria first.
Thanks, Annette. That's a great question. It's quite a wide answer, really. I think for me, there's been great strides in diversity, in encouraging girls to make sure that they understand the opportunities available in the tech sector, in engineering, that they can do anything they want. And certainly from my experience, that the younger you get those opportunities, the better. But also I think from from a wider standpoint, engaging with, not being afraid to engage with other institutions. And I think, you know, from what you said about the Innate research partnership, that's and the international collaboration with universities and colleges in other parts of the world, understanding what they've delivered. That sort of, as the communications have got better, there are strong lessons to be learnt. And obviously we can't do without that seed funding. So some of the innovative ideas, you know, as Paula used the word quirky, you know, these things have to come from somewhere. And without seed funding and local authorities using the funds that they've got, and central government recognising that has to happen, then yeah, we won't continue to be able to lead the way in innovative technologies.
Brilliant. And there's a nice comment in the chat there from Keith Madeley, who says their children's books are covering a wide range of jobs in construction and engineering, particularly for girls. I think that's brilliant. As a mum of a 13-year-old who's having her second birthday in lockdown this week. Yeah, I'm absolutely delighted to hear things like that. So that's great, Keith. Paula, do you have any reflections on kind of skills? I mean, you talked about retrofit. There's a whole tranche of different types of skills in that space that's needed.
There are new skills that are needed, but there's also, all the skills are out there. We've got to attract people to those types of jobs because they've almost forgotten that they're there. So within York, we've got 92,000 homes, of which we know at least 80,000 need some type of retrofit, whether that's upgrading the boiler, putting the insulation in the loft, draft proofing. All of that needs to happen. And yes, we're working with the FE College and we're working with the skills councils to make sure that we can fill that and increasing the number of apprenticeships we've got. We don't have enough warm bodies to do the work. So, you know, if people want to set up companies in this area at the moment, it's going to be extremely fruitful. There's government funding for it, there's private funding for it, and there are people desperate for it to happen.
And I think that's such an empowering and positive message, isn't it? Especially for people who have, you know, who are thinking about reskilling themselves as a result potentially of industries being really badly affected by COVID, that there are markets that are crying out for people that they can build themselves, if you excuse the pun, a really great future. So I think that's massively hopeful for people. I'm just conscious of the time. Well, I think at this point I have to close the session, and thanks everyone so much for coming. Thank you to Victoria Merton, Sophie Walker and Paula Widdowson for being panel members, and thank you to all of our audience who stuck with us through the panel, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference. Goodbye.